Good morning, colleagues, once again. My name is Kosietu. I'm from the Postgraduate School Research Capacity Development Unit. We are pleased to have you to join us for this insightful session titled Advanced Statistical Analysis Tips for Researchers. And we are honored to have my colleague from StatCon, Dr. Teboho Moloi, who will be facilitating today's session. Before we can move on, I would like to notify you or let you aware that this workshop is recorded, and this is for the purpose of keeping the record of all the workshops that we are providing, as well as to make sure that all the participants get a copy or access to the recording, as well as the resources which will be the presentation of this workshop. The recording usually we upload on RCT management system, which is the platform under services in Newlink. And then the last option is RCTMS. And also alternatively, we upload to model communities, which is the supervisor and PDRFM model community. So we are pleased to have you, colleagues. That was just a notification to say this workshop is recorded. As many of you are aware, the ability to conduct and interpret advanced statistical analysis is a critical skill for researchers aiming to produce high-quality evidence-based work. Today's workshop is designed to deepen your understanding of advanced statistical methods, improve your data interpretation skill, and enhance the overall rigor of your research. As I've mentioned earlier, we are having Dr. Teboho Moloi, who will be facilitating this workshop. Before I can introduce Dr. Teboho to you, colleagues, I would like to go over some housekeeping rules. Please feel free to use the chat to ask questions or raise your hand to engage in discussion. We encourage an interactive and collaborative environment, so don't hesitate to share your thoughts or experiences. If I may ask Dr. Moloi, would you prefer to take questions at the end of your presentation, or would you prefer to take them along the way as you go with your presentation?
I think like it will be good if we have like a discussion, question and answer kind of session at the end. Yeah.
Okay. So colleagues, if you do have a question, you can just type them under the chat, and then during Q&A, you can now enable all your mics, and you can raise a hand, and I will notify Dr. Moloi that someone has a question. However, we do encourage under the Q&A and chat, if you do have, and we will enable all your mics during the Q&A session at the end of Dr. Moloi's presentation. Once your mic has been muted, because I will just enable all your mics, colleagues, I kindly request you that you make sure that there is no background noise coming from your side, or you don't just unmute your mic while you are not speaking, unless you do have a question or any contribution. Therefore, you'll be allowed to unmute your mic. A feedback form will be shared under the chat shortly during the proceeding of the workshop. We kindly request you, colleagues, to take your 3 minutes. This helps us in terms of reporting purposes, as well as to give feedback to our facilitators for taking their time to facilitate these kinds of workshops. So we kindly request you, colleagues, to fill that feedback in. It also helps us in terms of generating the certificates of attendance. That is where we get the information and from the registration of the workshop, as well as that's from the feedback that was filled in. So with that being said, colleagues, now allow me to introduce our facilitator, Dr. Teboho Moloi. Dr. Teboho Moloi holds a PhD in cosmology and a BSc honors in astrophysics and space science from the University of Cape Town, as well as an BSc in mathematics and applied mathematics from the University of Free State, where he majored in mathematics, physics, and chemistry. His research focuses on large-scale galaxy surveys, relativistic cosmologies, and statistical modeling, particularly in context of testing theories of gravity and understanding dark energy. His PhD work developed mathematical tools to analyze relativist effects in galaxy clustering, contributing to the theoretical framework for projects like the Square Kilometre Array. Dr. Molloy has also explored the impact of Doppler magnification on cosmological observations and the use of Fisher matrix analysis for survey design validation. Dr. Molloy has further enhanced his expertise through data science and machine learning courses on Udemy. Prior to joining the University of Johannesburg, Dr. Molloy was a postdoctoral research fellow at Nelson Mandela University, where he researched thermodynamic coefficients in relativist fluid dynamics. Dr. Molloy is currently a statistical an analyst from StatCon, which is the unit that is under postgraduate school. With that being said, colleagues, I now hand over to Dr. Tebogo Molloy. Dr. Molloy, thank you once again for honoring our invite. We look forward to your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. Let me quickly share the slides here. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Nkosi. As Nkosi indicated, I will be talking to you today about the advanced statistical analysis tips for researchers. My name is Tebogo, and I work as a statistical consultant at StatCon, as Nkosi indicated. So the main purpose of this talk today, it will be to provide the researchers with the advanced statistical assumptions, right? And also, like, I'll try to provide knowledge as to what the advanced statistics techniques sort of like do there. As we know, like there is like quite a lot of so like this topic as it is like sort of like broad. So I'll say so like my focus of today's talk, at least. So I'll start first by talking about firstly I'll talk about the basic statistics techniques, right? So mainly I'll focus on the descriptive statistics. And then I'll move to advanced statistical techniques there. So with the advanced statistical techniques, I'll start by validation first. With validation here, for validation, I'll look at the exploratory factor analysis, and I'll also look at the confirmatory factor analysis. I'll then look at the normality test. And I'll look at the regression. So with the regression, I'll sort of like look at one, because like there's different types of regression methods, right? So like I'll look at the assumptions and the example maybe of linear regression. And I'll also look at the analysis of the variance. So like I know like maybe majority of you of the researchers here or the colleagues will be maybe hoping that I could have went or maybe provided knowledge also on structural equation model. I think like with the structural equation model, if you understand the confirmatory factor analysis and regression, the both of them combine sort of like lead to the structural equation model in a way. Even though structural equation model sort of like have like it's more robust than having like a linear regression, a normal simple linear regression, or a simple logistic regression or some sort, like, or whatever the regression that you're running. So like the SME will have like a more robust way. So as far as the descriptive statistics goes, because we want to sort of like go first with the basic statistics in order for us to at least just recall the basic statistics first. So the basic statistics are mainly important to provide us with the summary of the statistics there, and then they sort of like give us the summary of the statistics in a meaningful way. So like what this means is that you'll get, so like if you have like a actual number, or so like if you give out the questionnaire to your participants and then they give you so they sort of like provide their age, their actual age, right? So what the descriptive statistics will do will give you like the average age, the middling age, and so forth, and then it will give you the variation as well there. So so in that sense, so the descriptive statistics sort of like give us the statistics in a meaningful way there. And then descriptive stats are so sort of like allow us to to recognize patterns as well. So like this, you can see this with like using the frequencies or the percentages, or rather like if you look at or you can like plot your results and then you will see some patterns there. So sadly, the descriptive statistics doesn't allow us to test any hypothesis. So now like when you make like conclusions based on the frequencies, so one should be careful not to draw wrong or biased conclusions there. The descriptive stats. The often used techniques for the descriptive stats will be if you want to look at the location, variation, and central tendency there. So one thing again that is more that is more important is to know the levels of measure, right? So like when you create a questionnaire, so you need to know the different levels of measure in order for you to say, okay, so like which one should I be basing my questionnaires on, or if you're doing data extraction, when you do like if you have like data extraction sheet, so how do you create your categories there? So like we have like a nominal and so you have nominal, ordinal, and ordinal. So nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratios, right? So with the nominal, so like you have like exclusive categories and you have like exhaustive categories there. So the exclusive categories, this is if each of the data fits into only one category, you'll have like an exclusive category. Example of this will be if you asking participants what is your gender, and then they can select male or female or non-binary or prefer not to say. So like they will fall into, so like the participant will only select only one category there. An exhaustive category will be so like if each data fit into at least one category. So like an example of this will be if you asking participant what is their favorite, so like what types of fruits eat, so like then they can select at least one, or it's more of like a multiple response kind of questions there. And then we have so this is more of like a hierarchy of the categories or of the levels that we have. So like the ratio will be the highest here, so and nominal are the least, so like they're the lowest. So with the ordinal, so you can have like an exclusive category, you can have like an exhaustive category, which are the same, more or less the same as this one. But then in this case, like so the addition, so like the ordinal, the normally used ordinal variables include categories that can be ranked ordered. So like if you have a Likert scale, so if you have like a Likert scale where participants sort of like strongly disagree and agree. So like you'll rank 1 to be strongly disagree and then 5 to be strongly agree. So like so you sort of like put your categories in a ranked order there. So as far as the interval goes, so like the third one will be the interval there. So like interval include all the other categories there, but then the most important will be the equal interval categories. What that means is that we're looking at the distance between the intervals of the scale that is numerically equal. However, there is no absolute zero here. So which means that the scores of zero doesn't indicate that the property being measured absent. So so like an example of this will be if you have like if you have so like if you're measuring temperature, right? So like if you have like a temperature of zero, it doesn't mean that there is no temperature. So like it means that the temperature is very cold, but then it doesn't mean the absence of temperature there. So the ratio then will be the ratio will be an opposite of the interval. So like we have like an absent so like we have like a so like the we have like an absolute zero there. So if you measure so like for example if you measure zero like if you measure weight, so you can't have like a zero as a so like you can have like a zero value when you measure weight or when you measure body mass. Body mass index, you can have like an absolute value of zero, so like an absolute zero there. So in continuing with the levels of measure there, so if one have like a nominal category, so like if you have like your categories as nominal, or a variable being a nominal. So like you'll have like so the examples of that will be gender, race, marital, sorry for spelling here, marital status there. So the stats that you can conduct there will be a mode, so like the most frequented category there. If you like an example of ordinal variables, if it will be if you are ranking something, or if you are sort of like if you are ranking something, so like from 1 to 10, you will have like so I'm not sure like if like what a good example of rating. So like it will be if like participants in a beauty contest, so who came first, second, and third. And then another example will be pain rating there. So like if somebody have like a not like doesn't have a pain at all, or less of a pain, or more of a pain there. And the statistics that you can run for this will be the median. So like the median will be if you so like if you uh, put your the frequencies that you will have in an ascending order, or the percentages that you have of the respondents in ascending order, and then you look at the middling value, so that will be the median. And then if your variable that you're measuring is an interval, so the examples of that like will be if you're measuring temperature, level of happiness, or credit score, you can so like you can then the statistics that you can run there will be the mean or the standard deviation there. So, and then the examples for variable, if you're measuring a variable that is a ratio, like a ratio variable, will be age, body mass index, or salary there. So here, like you'll sort of like measure a geometric mean or a coefficient of variance. So what the geometric, so like the geometric mean is just the mean which signifies the central tendency of a set of numbers by finding the product of their values there. So like this is more, so like the geometric mean is more or less the same as the mean. And the coefficient of the variance, that is the ratio of the standard deviation of the mean to the mean, sorry. So this also is more or less the same as the standard deviation or the deviation there. So like half of the time when we run the stats, so when we run the stats for age, body mass index, and salary, we report the mean or the standard deviation there. Or so we report the mean and then we code the standard deviation. So I went through this because like when you create a questionnaire, so like you want to select the highest level of measurement possible. So like you will be when you create a questionnaire or data extraction sheet, so like you should be looking at maybe creating like intervals or using the ratio. So like using the interval or using the ratios there. Right. So as far as the advanced statistics goes, so like those are the inferential statistics. So the inferential statistics are used if you want to test for a hypothesis. So if you are testing a hypothesis, so like you'll have like some sort of like p-values here. So in this case, so if you, so the inferential statistics are useful in making some conclusions on a given data set or variable of interest. So because like you have like a p-value, so like for example, if you're looking for relationships between two variables, because like you'll have like p-values or between one or two, so like between independent, so like outcome variable and at least one independent variable. So like if you want to look at the relationship between the outcome variable and at least one independent variable. So because you will get the p-values, you can sort of like make conclusions based on that. We use this statistics. So we use the inferential statistics to compare, or rather to like, so sometimes to correlate, to check if there is a correlation between variables, and sometimes we use the statistics to make predictions. So this will be like more of like regression analysis. So predictions will be for when you running like linear regression. Correlation or chi-square will be if you want to correlate. Comparisons will be t-test or ANOVA there. So the commonly used techniques will be regression, t-test, ANOVA, correlation, chi-square then. Sometimes you can run a structural equation model, which will combine then the vector analysis and regression as well. All right, so like firstly, like I want to start by talking about the validation here. So validity is validity of an instrument determines the extent of which it reflects or can measure the construct being examined. So like we have like several types of validity discussed in the literature. So for example, you have like a content validity. So with the content validity, so this evaluate how well a measure is adequately represented. So this you can really test using any statistics. And then you also have like the predictive validity there. So predictive validity refers to the degree to which scores from the measure can predict the outcome there. So like also this, I'm not sure if like you can run a stats, any stats to sort of like test for this. However, the criterion validity, so like criterion validity is so like this test how well the measure or tool correlate with the outcome variable. So like with this, at least you can run like some sort of a correlation or regression analysis in order to determine the criterion validity. And lastly, we have like a construct validity. So a construct validity so measures how well the questionnaire or instrument that you have measure the theoretical construct that you have. So in this case, I'll be focusing on the construct validity. So based on the exploratory factor analysis, I'll be looking at the validity from the exploratory factor analysis and also from the confirmatory factor analysis, because they're more or less the same thing. So with the exploratory factor analysis is used to determine the underlying structure of the large set of variables. So like what this, so we mainly run this analysis in order to sort of like, if you have like 10 items measuring knowledge, so we want to test if all those 10 items that you have measuring knowledge, are they actually measuring knowledge? We also run this analysis maybe to remove items. So like some of the items. So sometimes you find that some of the items that you have measuring knowledge are not measuring knowledge. So like we want to remove some of those items. So factor analysis is commonly used to measure phenomena that cannot be measured directly. So, for example, intelligence, knowledge, attitude, somebody's attitude or practices. So you'll run factor analysis for that. What exploratory factor analysis do? It uses correlations among the items that you will have, or sort of like a couple of questions that you ask participants, measuring maybe intelligence. It uses the correlation between those items to search for a common cluster. And then it then identify the groups of variables which are relatively homogeneous. So it's sort of like take all the 10 items that you have measuring, say, knowledge, and then it sort of like group them into different groups. Or if it's just one group, it will be just one group. If like the 5 of them split into 2 groups, and then and another 5 split to another group, so it will sort of like split them into different groups. So in this case, when we refer to the groups, groups related variables are called factors in in exploratory factor analysis. The groups that are relating, they are called factors. Another way of thinking about this will be if like the 10 items that you had measuring knowledge, split it into 2 groups. So first group will be the type of like one type of knowledge, and then the other will be one type of another type of knowledge. What you have to do is read all the items and say they sort of like measuring this type of knowledge or this other type of knowledge. It's more or less saying it split them into different dimensions there. All right. So the assumptions that before you can run factor analysis, there are a couple of assumptions that should hold in order for one to say, okay, we have we can run analysis, so we can run factor analysis, or we can proceed with factor analysis. Let me put it that way. Firstly, we want factor analysis require require the use of continuous variables, but more often we use the ordinal variables. So if you have a Likert scale, so if you measured 10 items again with using measuring knowledge. And then you ask participants to agree or disagree with the statements. Factor analysis will work with those kind of variables. Also continuous variables. So continuous variable will be more or less like of intervals. If you have like interval or ratio, those will work as well to run the factor analysis. Factor analysis is sensitive to outliers, and outliers can distort the factor loading or end the loading structure. So factor loading represent the correlation there. So what the outliers, so like how you determine, so like that you have outliers, you have to plot your data, right? You'll have to plot the data. And then you'll see, if you have like a scatter plot, you'll see, or a box plot or scatter plot, you can see the outliers. You need to remove those points. So like if your scale is you're ranking from 1 to 5, you're rating from 1 to 5, and then someone selected 10. So like that won't make sense. You have to remove those. There shouldn't be no perfect multi-collinearity among the observed variables. So your items, so like the 10 items that you have in this case, if you have like a perfect correlation between the items, so you need to remove one of them because they're measuring the same thing. So like, or they're the same. So like you need to remove those. In exploratory factor analysis, each observed variable must be associated with one factor. This variable must have a higher factor loading than the cross loading. So if you have the 10 items again measuring knowledge, and then they split it into 2 groups. Sometimes you have like a case where the factor loading, you have like a cross loading. So we want item to have like at least fall into one group, not into two different groups. I'll show an example of that in the next slide just now. So like and the criteria that we use in order to deal with that kind of case anyway. So again, like exploratory factor analysis here, it's very, very sensitive to sample size there. So a large sample size is recommended if possible. So like so here so at StatCon we normally tell the researchers to at least have like a sample size of a minimum at least of 150 or 100, just somewhere in between there, in order to run factor analysis there, because like if you have like smaller sample size, your results might not come out good. So factor analysis does not assume any normality of the observed variable. So I'm going to talk about normality later on, but so like just to say here, you don't have to run any normality testing test in order to run the exploratory factor analysis there. So exploratory factor analysis assume that the relationship between observed variables is linear. So in order for you to determine this, whether your items are, so the observed variables are linear. So like your items, are they linear? So like you can plot each of the items in order to test if this is correct. Or again, you can check the alternative will be to run Pearson correlation and in order to test for this to see if the relationship between the items is linear there. So here, Dr. Andyfield sort of like conducted a study with the non-anxious and anxious students here. I think like this was prior to a test or something. I'm not sure if it was prior to test or not. So what he used there, so like the scale that he used, so he took like all this statements here and then use the scale so from strongly disagree to strongly agree, and then ran factor analysis here. So like what I wanted to indicate here is that so like all these items grouped into like so they sort of like came out with 4 factors here, so 4 groups. They grouped out to 4 groups here. And then here you have like a cross loading here. So like you have like the statement people try to tell you that SPSS make statistics easy to understand, but it doesn't. So that item sort of like fall under group 2 and group 1. So like if you have like a case like this, because one of the assumptions that we take here is that like you need an item should be falling into at least one group. It should fall into one group, exactly one group, not not having like, you shouldn't have like this cross loading here. So if you have like a case like this, so if this value here, and so like if the value 0.523 and the value 0.473, so if the difference between those two numbers as 0.3, you can keep this item, then you'll keep the higher factor loading there. But then in this case, because like the difference between those two values are much, so like it's the difference will give you 0.1. So you need to sort of like get rid of that item. So like we remove that item. So remember initially I did indicate that we run factor analysis mainly to test out if the items that you have, like the items that you have, are they actually measuring what you intended to measure, or to remove some of the items that you have measuring whatever construct that you are measuring. So in this case, this will be one of the reasons to remove this item here. All right. So as far as confirmatory factor analysis goes, confirmatory factor analysis is it's another form of exploratory factor analysis commonly used in social research. So confirmatory factor analysis is it's a more robust way of running the exploratory factor analysis. So it uses it's used to test whether measures of the construct are consistent consistent with the researchers' understanding of the nature of the construct. Confirmatory factor analysis is a multivariate structural procedure that is used to test how well the measure variable represent the construct there. So the assumptions before you can run a confirmatory factor analysis, so the assumptions that should hold will be, again here, you need a large sample size. So in this case, like you need a sample size to be like at least above 200. So this is mainly because when you run confirmatory factor analysis, you have like this, you'll have like issues with, if you have like a smaller sample size, you'll have like issues with model fitness. So like when you run this, like there's a lot of issues that will come with the model of fitness. Let me just put it that way. We also need the correct a priori model specification. So what one should, so like here one should have like a theoretical or empirical justification of the model. Of the model structure, or so like you should have like a well placed, so like you should have a theoretical hypothesis of some sort, or a model structure, or of the model that you want to test. So before you can run exploratory factor analysis, you should, so like the data must come from a sample size, random, so from a simple random sampling, in a way. And then I wanted to then talk about then the normality test here. So we run this analysis in order to know what technique we need to run. So which technique to run, right? So because like if you have like for example, if you want to test for a relationship between one variable to the other. You'll use, for example, you might use like a correlation, Pearson correlation to test for the relationships. But then if your data is non-parametric, you will then run a Spearman correlation there. So like it's more of like knowing what technique you should run if your data is parametric or if it's not, if it's non-parametric. So here we want to determine if the data is parametric or non-parametric. So like a parametric is applied to data that is normally distributed to the levels of measure that are interval or ratios there. So in order to, if you want to test this, let me explain. When you want to test this, you can test this using the p-values. In SPSS or with R or with Stata. Or you can use graphs. So like you can use box plots or histograms. Let me use histograms, not box plot, like a histogram. A histogram, so like you will plot your data and then you look at and then you'll feed the Gaussian plot and then you'll see if your data is skewed. Is it normally distributed or is it skewed to the left or skewed to the right there? So parametric tests are applied to a data that is not normally distributed there. Okay. So the parametric test techniques are t-test, ANOVA, Pearson correlation, and linear regression. For non-parametric techniques, one can run a Spearman rank order correlation coefficient. I mean, Whitney test, Wilcoxon sign ranked test, or you can run the Kruskal-Willis. But then this all depend on what is your hypothesis and what does the model look like anyway. Okay, so and then I wanted to then talk about the regression analysis. So as far as regression analysis goes, regression analysis it's used to predict the values of the dependent variable based on the values of the at least one independent variable there. It is commonly used to test for the impact of change in the independent variable on the dependent variable. Or have like a majority of the projects that we get, we use the regression analysis sometimes to test the relationship between independent variable and or independent variables and the dependent variable there. So these are commonly used regression models. So if you have like a interval or ratio, so if your outcome variable is an interval or a ratio, one can run a linear regression. If you have like if your outcome variable it's a binary variable, so like a yes or no, or agree, disagree, just those two options. If you have like a two options, so two categories, and then you can run logistic regression. So if your outcome variable is time, you can run a Cox proportional hazard regression. So like this is normally used in so like I think like people that do biology normally use this. So like if you doing a research on certain species, and then you will say for so like you keep time, so like so like your time is your outcome variable, and then you sort of like say what is the survival? So like it's also known as like a survival analysis. So like so you want to know how long does this the species survive until what time and within what temperature? Like you can measure temperature as well. So it's more or less of saying the survival. So it's more of like a survival analysis there. And then if your outcome variable is a ratio, one can run a negative binomial regression there. So in this case, like, so for this one, so like when you run this last one, the negative binomial regression, I think like this require the count. So like you have like you need the integers. So like you have to have like a integers from 0 to infinity. So here 0 can be included. So sorry, negative numbers can be included. So like if you measuring something that have negative temperatures, so like negative numbers, let me put it that way. So like you can run this analysis. So with all this linear, so like with the regression analysis that you just saw now, I wanted to maybe focus on the linear regressions assumptions there. Before you can run the linear regression, what are the assumptions that should hold in order for one to run that analysis? So firstly, we need to check if there is a linear regression between independent variable and the dependent variable there. Again here, so like you can test this by sketching a scatter plot, and then sort of like and then fit like a line, a straight line, and see if the data sort of like fit to that line. And then also we need to check all the variables are normally distributed then. So with the normally distributed, I forgot to say this. You can use you can test this by running, so like checking for p-values from Kolmogorov if your data is if you have like a data that is 50 or above, so responses or data points that are 50 or above, you can use Kolmogorov and Smirnov to test if your data is normally distributed or not. You look at the p-values there. But then if you have less data, like let's say you have like less than 50 data points, you look at p-values, Shapiro-Wilk. You'll use Shapiro-Wilk p-values to test if your data is normally distributed or not. And then so linear regression is also very sensitive to outliers. So like you should check if you have outliers, and then you'll probably need to remove those outliers then. And then the independent variables are all linearly independent. So there shouldn't be no variables that depend on each other, on other variables. So like your independent variables shouldn't depend on other independent variables there. So for a multiple response, for multiple regression, make sure that there is no multicollinearity. So this you can check by looking at the variance inflation factor. So there is like when you run linear regression, multiple linear regression, you'll have like a value for VIF. So that will be the variance inflation factor, and then that value shouldn't be above 10. So like if the values are below 10, so you'll check all those values for the independent variables. If the value is above 10, you'll have like a multi. So that will mean that that value correlate highly with your dependent variable. That you might need to remove that variable. Okay, so like we have like an example from so this article here by Frank 2015 where he wanted to where they wanted to check if what are the predictors of apparent post-traumatic stress syndrome after a child hospitalization on a general pediatric ward there. So what they did here, so like they wanted to know what are the factors that contribute what are the factors that contribute to the parent post-traumatic stress symptoms there. So these are the predictors. The predictors will be the relevant covariate parent coping. There you have parent distress during hospitalization, then the interactions there. So what you will need to look at will be the p-values there. So like the p-values, if the p-values were less than 0.05, so like we use like a 0.05 as your criteria there. If the values are below 0.05, those were the factors that contribute to parent post-traumatic stress symptoms there. So for example, relevant covariate, sort of like they found that was a contributing factor to post-traumatic stress symptoms there. Being a single parent there, also they found that to be a factor that contributed to the outcome variable. However, length of hospital stay, so like if the parent stayed for long time in a hospital, so the length of hospital stay wasn't a factor that contribute to post-traumatic stress syndrome there. So like you can look at the p-values there and make sense out of it, or you can go read this. So this article is a good article to look at in order to see how linear regression can be used in order to predict something. So like in order to predict what are the variables that lead to the independent variable, so to the outcome variable there. So lastly, then I needed to talk about the comparisons. So like when you do the comparison, so like one of the fundamental questions of the survey research is to see if there is differences among respondents there. When evaluating the differences in mean, we can use the t-test or ANOVA. So like when we say t-test, like there is different t-tests, and so as ANOVA, there's different ANOVAs. So like when you run a t-test, you can have like a paired sample t-test, and then you have like an independent t-test, as you can see them down here, and also you have like two or three different ANOVA types there. So you'll have one way, two way, and multi ANOVA there as well. So if you want to test, one need to know when to apply any of this t-test or ANOVA. So if you testing the difference between between the dependent groups, like let's say two dependent groups, so like an example of this will be if you use a questionnaire in somewhere, let's say Namibia, you give respondents a questionnaire, and then they fill it up, and then you use the same questionnaire in South Africa, and then you compare the two. Then you can use one simple t-test or PET sample t-test. So PET sample t-test is normally known as a correlated t-test as well. So you can check for the difference between those two. So like half of the time here, like you have like both of them are dependent groups. There are two dependent groups. If you are looking for to test the difference between independent groups between two groups, so in this case, like let's say you use a questionnaire, so like you give like students a test, and then they write the test, and then you want to check the difference between males and females, if males are performing better or females are performing better. And then you can use then the independent samples t-test there. If you are looking for to test out the difference between 3 or more independent groups, one-way ANOVA or two-way ANOVA will be more appropriate to use there. So this again here, so all this here, so like you can run this if your data is normally distributed. If your data is not normally distributed, the alternative for paired sample t-test will be what you call this. So like for PET, it will be Wilcoxon. So like t-test, you'll run Wilcoxon in there. So for independent sample t-test, if your data is not parametric, it's not parametric, or you run the Min-Whitney test. So the alternative of this will be Kruskal-Willis test for this for one-way ANOVA there. Analysis of variance then, so like because like we have like different types of so like if you running the comparisons, we have like so many different types. So like here I just wanted to focus on the analysis of analysis of variance ANOVA there, one way or two way. So once again, like I needed to repeat this. So like this is you run this analysis when you testing 3 or more independent. So if you're testing the differences between 3 or more independent groups, the test could also be applied to 2 groups. However, the independent sample test will be more appropriate there. So the reason for this to be the reason we run it to test the differences between 3 independent groups is more of like, because like you'll have like a post hoc. So you'll get from SPSS, you'll get that there is a differences between 3 groups, right? But then you don't know which the differences are between which group 1 or group 2 or group 3. You don't know the differences. Then the post hoc will be more appropriate to look at. So like it will give you that information that the differences are between 1 and 3 or 1 and 4 or 1 and 2 or 2 or 3 there. And then the data should have independence of observations there. So what this means is that there shouldn't be the same participants who are in both groups. Yeah. So like we shouldn't have like 2 participants that are falling into 2 groups. So if like if you're conducting a study with anxious and non-anxious students, the student shouldn't be in. So one student can't jump from non-anxious to anxious. And then the dependent variable should be normally distributed for each group. So again, here you'll need to test this. You should run normality test to test whether your data is normally distributed or not normally distributed. Again, here we then with this analysis, this is also, you need to check if you don't have outliers there. So like you'll have to plot your data and then check if you have outliers. And then if you do have outliers, you need to remove those outliers. And then here we have like a paper by here we have like a paper by Mayland, in 2014, where they were assessing the quality of care for dying patients for the bereaved relatives perspectives there. So here, so they had like different groups. So like they had all patients. It was compared to hospice, and then it was compared to another. So like what is the other group was hospital with Liverpool care pathway, and then hospital without Liverpool care pathway there. And then, so here, like you'll need, and then they looked at the variables that were measured was what environment, facilities, care, and communication there. So what this, so in this case, in this article, the findings that they found that, so like you look at the ANOVA, where there is ANOVA there, you have like the p-values there. So the p-values are telling us that for each of the variables that they measured, the 4 variables that they measured there, for these groups that they have, like all patients, hospice, hospital without Liverpool care pathway, and with Liverpool pathway, hospital with a Liverpool care pathway. So the stats there is telling us, the p-values are telling us that they found the differences there, the differences between the groups. And then post-hoc as well showed us that there was the difference between hospice and hospital with Liverpool care, and there was also differences when it comes to the ward and environment. There was a difference in hospital hospice versus hospital without Liverpool care pathway there. And also there was a difference between hospital with Liverpool care versus the hospital without Liverpool care. So so when you report in this kind of table, so you look at the means there, because like they have the means and then they coded the standard deviation. So like I'm not sure about the score here, what the score they used here, but with the all patients, they scored 7.3 for what environment, and then hospice scored 9.1, and then hospital without Liverpool care scored 6.4, so the average of 6.4. And hospital without Liverpool care pathway scored 5.4 there. So like as you can see, those numbers are more or less they're not the same though. But then the huge difference you can be spotted from the hospice and the hospital without Liverpool care there. So like you can look at this, so you can maybe visit this article and see what else they reported and what was being measured as well there for more information then. So you can look at the Mainland article there. And thank you for listening. I think this is the end of the presentation. Yeah. All right. Any questions?
Thank you so much, Dr. Muloy, for such a very insightful presentation. And now we are taking questions, colleagues. I will just enable all your mics. If you do have any question, just unmute your mic, or alternatively, you can just type under the chat or under the Q&A, and then I will go through some questions under the chat. However, if you prefer to speak, just unmute your mic and ask your questions. Yeah, thank you for that. Since we are still waiting for questions, Dr. Moloi, I would
Yes.
like to know from your side, as you are dealing with researchers and assisting them, what are the
Sure.
common pitfalls most researchers make when drawing conclusions from complex analysis in particular?
You'll have to give me an example, because so ourselves we run the stats, right? So like it's very hard to, so like we barely do the reviewing of their work. So we just tell the researchers, this is what you need to do, and this is how you do it, right? So whether somebody have done that or not, it's very, yeah, it's hard for us to know that, right? But then like with the, so like I think like again here, like half of the time it's more of like the simple mistakes of like knowing the stats. So like for example, this here, so like the stats that you run for each of the so like for example, so somebody might run the means for a categorical or a binary variable there. So like those are the common mistakes that we normally see, I think. Because like some of the researchers do send us the stats, and then we look at the stats and then we say, okay, like there's some mistakes that you have done. So for example, if you're running cross tabs as well, you can't use like a ratio scale. So like if you have a ratio, you can't run cross tabs. So like those are kind of mistakes that we sort of like see sometimes, but like we barely see them because like few researchers do send us their stats. Instead, we are the one that provide the stats to them instead. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that. Colleagues, if you do have a question, just unmute your mic and ask your question, or just type under the chat and we will go through your questions.
Thank you.
So I don't know if, okay, s- I
Yes,
don't know if someone
I
has a
am.
question.
Yes, I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. Thank you very much for the wonderful presentation. I have about two questions, and I am Dr. Abraham Ogofure from the Department of Biotechnology and Food Technology. I think I heard during the course of your presentation that when we are looking at descriptive statistics, we basically do not need to test for hypothesis. And
Yeah.
that's true. But and you also mentioned something about using questionnaires, but that's where my question is coming from. A situation whereby questionnaire data was collected from some respondents, say vendors of snacks or something, and
Sure.
after we have seen um, the descriptive analysis using percentage or ratios of frequency, then some persons still go ahead to do a cross tabulation of
Yeah.
such data, then employ either correlation statistics to test for p-value. So I don't know how you can basically, draw a line and make me understand that, because it's
Yeah.
becoming confusing. Knowing
Yeah.
fully well that you can't test type for hypothesis using descriptive statistics, and you are saying that, you
Yeah.
know,
So
in
like
some
I think like you
articles.
just you more or less answered your like yourself in a way. So with descriptive statistics, right? Like you don't have any p-value. So like as soon as you run the chi-square, you're running inferential stats. Even though I see where the mistake might come from. So with the crosstabs, like you'll get the frequencies, right? You get the frequencies, but
Yes.
however, like you will then look at the p-value. So like you'll have the p-value from the crosstabs. So like as soon as you have like a p-value, you're not doing descriptive stats anymore. So like you are running the inferential stats, because like you have like a p-value to say, okay, the p-value is less than 0.5. Then I can say whether the hypothesis hold, and then you can make conclusions based on the p-value, but not on the frequencies though. So the frequencies will be the percentage and the frequency or the plots that you will have, but then you don't have a p-value there. So you can so the descriptive themselves, you like, so you should be careful when you make conclusions. You can make conclusions from that, right? So like let's say if majority of your participants agree with like some statements that you have, you can make conclusions and say, so it seems like the participants were knowledgeable, right? But
Yeah.
then so like you're not sure whether they were well informed, or they got like some intervention of some sort. You don't know, right? Or training or something. So like with the frequencies, you can't really make any so like you can't make like like you can't really draw conclusions. You can't test any hypothesis. But an hypothesis will be when you say, so when you run crosstabs, like you want to know is there a relationships between two variables or not, right? um, uh, or so like, or you can run like the correlation as you indicated. So that by saying that, you have like a hypothesis that you're testing, but like with the frequencies, you can't really, so like you'll need a p-value in order to know whether your hypothesis hold or not. But then if you have like frequencies, you can't really say, okay, I'm testing hypothesis there. You can't test the hypothesis with frequencies, with the percentages. I don't know if that makes sense though.
Yes, it does. It does. Thank you. I
Sure.
have another question.
Sure.
Okay. When you talked about outliers, and
Yes.
you made it very simple and clear to me that by merely looking at the box plot of our data, we can tell that, oh, these and these are all outliers, because
Sure.
obviously they will be scattered, in fact, large deviation from the mean. So my question is, um, when do we know whether to remove or to leave outlier, because I understand that some persons carry out this Windsorization process, whereby they look at the data and they Windsorize it, but I don't know, somehow if we do that, are we not, it's kind of confusing. I don't know when to do that and when not to.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, so like you see, like if you so like it will depend again on the technique that you're running, right? So like let's say you're running like confirmatory factor analysis. So like so if you like you'll have like a rating scale from 1 to 10, but then if you see a point that so like a point that is saying 15, where is it coming from? So like that is like it's more of saying maybe this is a mistake, I should remove this item, right? But then if like it's so like all your data, so like all your participants were responding 6 and then 10 still fall under that range, like I can keep that, I'll keep it and see when I run the stats, what do I get, right? But like you don't, so like if it doesn't make sense, you remove it. Like if so it depend on so like if you looking at the data, so like so you're collecting data in South Africa, but then you find one person is from Lesotho, like, well, I remove that person, right? So like it's more like that. Yeah. So like if it doesn't fall under the range that I want, it have to go. So like I'll put it like I'll think about it more like that. But then I know like again sometimes you have like the nice thing about the outliers, like I don't think you get too many outliers, right? Like you get few of them, and then you're not gonna lose too much data there. So like if you lose one participant out of like all this, you have like 200, and then you're losing one. It's not gonna be an issue that much. So like I'll see how much of outliers I have and then make a decision based on that.
Okay, one last question.
Sure, no
Sorry.
problem. Yeah, no, don't be sorry, man. It's fine.
All right. I think I had a discussion with someone who said that when you have a range of values, 5, 7, 10, 12, then another value now appearing as 22, or maybe more values having so much this deviation from a pool of value, that we are not supposed to look out for the mean or use the mean, but rather we should use the median value. So I saw something like that while you made your presentation. So I got a little confused. When are we supposed to use mean? When are we supposed to use median?
Median, yeah. So so the median, so like I think like it depend on the scale that you have. So here, so like if you have like if you're measuring, so like it depend on what you measure, right? So like if you are rating, so like for the rating scale, so like if you have Likert scales, you'll so like the reason you'll use the mean, so like the mean as the middling value, right? So you can think about the mean as like so like if you round off the mean, because like the mean will give you 3.2, 1 point something, right? So if you round it off to the nearest number, right, like you get the median, right? So if you have like a ranking scale from that is that you have anchors, like so like let's say strongly disagree, strongly agree, and then 1 to 5, right? So neutral will be number 3, right? So if you look at the what you call this, so like your categories are falling into 5 categories, exactly 5 categories, right? We don't want to assume, because like if you take the mean on those 5 categories, what if the mean is 3.2? Are your participants in neutral with that statement, or are they agreeing because like it's above 3? We're not sure if they're agreeing. So like in those kind of categories, I'll report on the mean, but then with I'll report the median. Sorry, with when you're rating, if you have ordinal or you have a rating kind of scale, I'll use the median. But then if you have like the intervals or you have ratios, there you'll need the mean and code the standard deviation. So like the reason for this, so the median is because like you want to know the exact category. So like when you report the rating scale, right? So there's no in between it's either you don't have pain at all, or you have less pain, or you have more of a pain, right? So if you have like 1.2, I'm not sure, like, so like when you report, you're not going to be sure whether you're reporting on not at all pain or is it, or 1.5 or 1.6. So 1.6 is in between those two. So like you don't know whether the person have less pain or they don't have pain at all. So like you, if you have like the well-defined sort of anchors. So I'll use the median. But then if you have like raw numbers, like temperature, level of happiness, stuff like that. So I'll use the mean standard deviation there, or credit score, because like you have like a score. The credit score can give you 60 point something. You have like 0 with comma something. So you can use the mean and standard deviation there.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Sure, sir. Okay.
Thank you for that, colleagues. I have noted your hand, Dr. Moyo, but firstly, I would like to go through some chat. There is a questions or some few questions from the chat. So, Dr. Muloi, there is a question from Dr. Palwa. How many outliers do you remove from a study's results? And outliers in the actual sense, a valid part of the results, would it be right to just change from parametric to non-parametric to avoid removing such outliers data points?
So like again here, so like it's more of like it depend, right, with the outliers. If you have too many, because like it's very rare that you have too many outliers, right? Because like it dependent again on the stats that you run, right? Like so if you running so like a factor analysis, so we don't want those at all. So like you would need to remove them. Confirmatory factor analysis as well, you need to remove them. But then again, how much of data are you losing again there? Because like if you're running confirmatory factor analysis or factor analysis itself, so like so they will distort your correlations. So because like one person, so like if all the participants were in agreement, and when one person just sort of like disagree and whatnot, so like it's not going to be good. So like I think like again it depends on how much of the outliers. So like I'll say don't quickly go to a non-parametric, rather. So like just try to see how much of data are you going to lose if you remove those outliers, rather. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. And there is another question from Kolisile. When designing a study on the effect of various drugs on cancer cells in order to reach an accurate conclusion on the effects, which statistical test would you recommend?
So the effect. So like if you're doing the effect, again, it will depend on the variables. So like it depends, like if you measured your outcome variable. So if you want the effects though, like whenever you say the effect of something on something, you'll run regression analysis. So and then whether it's linear or logistic regression, it will depend on the outcome variable. So like it will depend on the person's outcome variable. What did they use? So like if you want to know so the effect of coronavirus on somebody's work, so then I'll say do you work, yes or no, right? So your outcome variable will be work, right? And then I'll ask a bunch of questions that have to do with coronavirus. And then your outcome variable here will be the work, yes or no. So like you'll run logistic regression. So regression analysis will be better for that study. Yeah.
Okay. We'll come back to the chat. And now, Dr. Moyo, you can unmute your mic and ask your question.
Thank you so much. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, we can. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So my question still is coming back to the outlier. So I'll give an example. So for instance, students sat for an exams. So the expected scores range from 0 to 100%. And then
Yes.
The majority of the students in that class have scored between, say, 0 to 40. And then there are some, maybe 2 outstanding students who have scored 91, for instance. So if you're looking at, for instance, it's a class of maybe 200 students, and then 198 or so have scored just between 0 and maybe 50. And then you have these two, which, okay, so in my example, there are two scores with 91%, and maybe one of those scores is a genuine 91, and one of them, maybe it's a mistake. It was supposed to be 19, but maybe it was entered as 91. How do you handle such situations? Do you consider those as outliers? Because obviously, them being 91, they're outside the range of the majority of the students. But in terms of the expectation, they are within the expected range. So how do you handle such situations?
So like with those ones, like I think like you don't remove those because like again like so since you gave the range, because like initially you just said like from 0 to 100, right? As long as they're not out of that range, so like they still they're there, right? So like what you need to do, like if you're doing like comparisons, so like if you wanted to compare the students, so like I'll group them with like the above 50. So like let's say you want to do the comparisons between the ones that were average, the ones that failed, and the ones that passed. And then I'll add them with the ones that just got above 50 into one group. And then when I do the comparisons, those two people will be included. So I won't remove them because like they look like they are outliers, but I don't think they are because like they still fall under your range, so the 100 range. But like if they get 102, that's another problem. Yeah. I'll probably remove those ones then if it's 102. But like with if you're still within the range, I'll keep those participants. Yeah. Because again, like if you, yeah, so if you're running the means and whatnot, so the average will still go to like the average. If you add those two participants, I think the average will be low still, right? So if you check the average of the passing rate, so if you check the average score out of 100, like those two participants, I don't think they will affect your result that much. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Thank you for that. There is another question from the chat from Dr. Opeyemi. Is it advisable to report an estimation if one of some assumptions is not met?
So like, can you give me an example, maybe? So like, if you're reporting an estimation, what sort of estimation?
Okay. Dr. Opeyemi, can you just unmute your mic if possible and clarify on your question? In the meantime, I will move on to Dr. Salami. How can I determine whether my research design requires advanced statistical method, e.g. multi-level modeling, SEM, Bayesian inference?
So with SEM, right? So you need to, so like you have to, so like I indicated, you have to have like an empirical or theoretical justification of some sort of a model, so a framework. So like you need to know, so like I forget like so what the normal model that is used I think academically. So like you need to have like a model, right, that you're testing first, and then you come to StatCon, and then we design the questionnaire with you, and then we can then see if like will be able to test out that model that you have. But then half of the time, so like you use the ordinal, so like you'll have like you'll create a construct. Let's say perceived use. For example, you'll have perceived use, and then we want to see if perceived use lead to behavioral intention or behavioral intention to change. So there, like you have to create a questionnaire that have perceived use. You'll have like 5 items measuring perceived use. Let's say perceived use for like let's say 4IR. If you like so you have a study on 4IR, like you'll have perceived use of technologies, behavioral intention to use those, and then we want to know if the perceived use, does it lead to behavioral intention to use those technologies? And then you'll have for behavioral intention as well, you'll have like some sort of like items that are measuring that construct as well. And then you will have maybe behavioral intention to change, or actual use. Let me say actual use is normally like a outcome variable there. And then you can add the moderators. You can add gender or mediators. I'm not sure whether there will be mediators or moderators. You can add gender, race, marital status as your moderators there. So like you can create like a questionnaire with the asking participant to agree and disagree, and then you have some sort of a model that you have, and then I think then we can know then we'll need for you to run SEM. That's the first thing that you have to do, have a model. So if you don't have a theoretical or empirical model, SEM, you can't run SEM at all. Or you can have like hypothesis as well. So like you can use a hypothesis and say behavioral intention lead to perceived use lead to behavioral intention, and then behavioral intention might lead us to actual use. So you'll have hypothesis that, or so like the hypothesis will be perceived use influences behavioral intention, and behavioral intention somehow influences intention actual use there as well. So like you have to have like some sort of hypothesis or a model. When you create a questionnaire, then use the like slave there.
Okay, thank you for that, Doc. I've noted your hand, Dr. Salam, but firstly, I would like to go under Q&A. There is a question from Dr. Tsandiwe. Thank you for the session, Dr. Tebogo. May you go back to the last slide and explain the relationship there between the means and their SD under that table?
Oh yeah, so the means is so like on this article, right? So they found that there's differences in the scores. So the scores will be the mean and the standard deviation, and then the range there. So like it seems like the range was from 0 to 10, right? So out of 10, so all participants in like that, I'm not sure like if they were working, like, so I'm not sure like if this is working what environment. So, but like they measured the what environment. I'm not sure how they measured it. I'll have to see their questionnaire. But then all participants, they scored average of 7.3 out of 10. And hospice scored 9.1 out of 10. And hospital, so participants that were from the hospital with Liverpool care pathway, they scored 6.4. Hospital without Liverpool care pathway, they scored 5. So the p-values here are telling us, so you look at the p-value and then you say, so is there a difference between those those 4 groups that you have? If this p-value here is below 0.05, there is a difference between those scoring, but then you don't know where the differences are. So what the post hoc is good for is mainly to tell us where the differences are. So they indicated here between hospice versus the hospital with the Liverpool care pathway. So you look at that 9, the score of 9, and then the score of 6. There's a huge difference there between those out of 10. Between hospice and without there, so this and that, there was a huge difference there. And they also say between the 2 different Liverpool, so the with Liverpool pathway and without Liverpool pathway, there is a difference there, which like I'm not seeing there, because like a 6.4 and 5.4 are not that different, because like I'll have thought maybe there's so sorry, the differences are between these 3 groups here. 1, 2, 3, not the all patients here. So like this is the score for all the participants, but then the differences were tested between these 3 here. So the hospice, hospital LCP, hospital without LCP there. So they looked at the differences between those 3 groups, and then they found the differences for each of these variables that were measured, and then they saying the differences for all of them there was differences. However, with this here 4 so like with the facilities, so the hospital with Liverpool care pathway, they scored 4 there, 4.5. So participants got 4.5 or respondents. But then with a hospital without Liverpool care pathway, they scored 4.1. So here you see the p-value is not above, is above 0.05. So there was no differences there. So the scores are the same there. As far as the care there, they scored 16.8 and 14.6. They say that there was a difference there. The last one, 9.4 and 8.2 for communication there. So those are those were the scores, the average scores for communication, and then there was no differences. There was no differences between those 2 values. Even the first one, I think, like I'm not sure why they got the differences on the last column there, but then the rest of them they found differences between the scoring, except for these 2 here. So the facilities and the communication there. Hope that is clear. Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
Dr. Tsandiwa, you can confirm if you were answered. In the meantime, we can move to Dr. Salam. Dr. Salam, you can unmute your mic.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, colleagues. Thank you, Dr. Thank you, Dr. Molloy, for giving this impactful presentation at this time. You have given the justification concerning the advanced statistical methods, such as the multi-level modeling, that is MLM, and structural equation modeling. Now, the multi-level modeling, as you have explained, that it can be hierarchical in terms of students within the schools and patients within the clinic. My question is this: I need more explanation on the use of appropriate dealing with small sample sizes, then prior knowledge, or if there is need for probabilistic interpretation. Thank you.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. So myself, like I need to be truthful on this one. So like with the small sample size, we so like normally like we normally send students back to the field when it comes to the small sample size. It's a huge issue when it comes to stats. Really, like with the small sample size, you can't really do much with the small sample size. I guess like you can run the normality test, and some of the tests can work. So like the same test that I went through today, they can still work, some of them with the small sample size. Because yesterday, I ran factor analysis with for pilot study, and the results came out good. To my surprise, but like normally, look, we need more participants there. So for a small sample size, sometimes we normally, if like the student or a researcher can't up the numbers, so we normally run similar statistics, and provide justification for that like it's more of like a study limitation or something like that. But myself, like with the small sample size, like any techniques that are used for small sample size, I haven't used them myself. So yeah. So like certainly with the small sample size, we normally send researchers back to the field or to gather more data. Then we think about like techniques to run small sample size, certainly there, yeah.
Okay, thank you for that, Dr. Molloy. I hope, Dr. Salam, you are answered. There is a follow-up from Dr. Opeyemi regarding the first question he asked, and now there is a follow-up on that he's adding. I don't know, Dr. Moloi, are you able to go through some chats and see what Dr. Opeyemi is referring to?
Yeah, I can, yeah.
Okay. So let me just go back to the first question.
So for instance, a linear model fulfill normality but violates. So like if the model, right, the linear model, sorry, it violates the multi-collinearity. I think like it more the like so there. I think like it's more of like the multi-collinearity. You'll have like a item that is correlating highly with your outcome variable. I think like you probably want to think about canceling that item, right? Remove that one item. Because like it might be the cause of like the multi-collinearity, because like the multi-collinearity, if that is violated, at more of like you look at the variance inflation factor and then you say, okay, I need to remove this. So like I'll say that remove the item that is so like the items that have like a value of like so like the VIA of like 10 above 10, you need to remove that item. Is probably causing issues.
Okay, thank you for that, Dr. Moloi. Dr. Opeyemi, you can confirm if your question was answered. I don't see any questions at the moment under the Q&A or under the chat. Colleagues, if you still have a question, just unmute your mic and ask your question. Alternatively, you can type under the chat. Dr. Moloi will go through your questions. Okay. Okay. Yes. Dr. Chico. As I saw, there was a hand up. I don't know if.
Yeah. So that.
Dr. Chico, you can go ahead.
Oh, no, that was not a hand up. I wanted to send an emoji for your thank you for understanding message there, for attendance message there. Sorry.
Okay, good.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you, Doc, for that. It seems like we don't have any further questions. Thank you so much, Dr. Moloi. That was a very good presentation, I must say, and very informative as well. We do hope and believe that colleagues have learned something from this, and they will take it and share with other colleagues as well. And those who are supervising, probably they might share with their students as well. So thank you so much for such a very informative and insightful session, Dr. Moloi. With the colleagues, thank you as well for engaging, asking questions, and for your attendance to make this workshop a possible one. And I have posted under the chat a feedback evaluation. We kindly request you colleagues to take a 2 minutes to rate this workshop or to just give your feedback based on this workshop that you have just attended. It helps us in terms of improving our service delivery, as well as to give feedback to our facilitators for taking their time. So we usually share the feedback with the facilitators for them to evaluate themselves as well and to see the impact they have made in facilitating all our workshops. So the feedback also ensures that you get the certificate of attendance, which I believe everyone received, those who have been attending or those who attended any of the workshop in April. All the workshop attendance certificates have been sent out. So if you attended any of the workshop, and however you didn't receive your certificate of attendance, kindly email me on N or supervision course, and then I will be gladly help you in generating your certificate. When sending out the certificates, I did mention that some of the certificates might not have your correct details. This is true because some colleagues, they didn't register for the workshop and they joined in using the right link. However, I'll be helping those colleagues. I've noted all your emails, so I'll correct those certificates. If maybe your certificate doesn't have your staff or student number, please send me your full details and I will rectify that. With that being said, thank you so much once again, colleagues, and thank you to Dr. Moloi. I'll kindly request your presentation, Dr. Moloi, and this will help me in terms of uploading it to our platform, which is the RCT management system, and all other communities, which is the supervisor community as well as the PDRF community. So we usually upload the resources after 3 days of the workshop. So it will be available, the recording of this session, as well as the presentation of this session. I don't know if I'm closing anyone out who wanted to ask a question before we can officially close the workshop. Dr. Moloi, any last word from your side before we can officially close the session?
Oh, last words. Last words, yeah. Not really. So like just I'm not sure if colleagues are aware with the services that we provide at StatCon. Maybe that's the only thing that we do provide. So like we provide support for quantitative studies, and everything is free. But then, so the only thing that we charge for is hosting online surveys for researchers. But then we just host them. We don't. What is this? We don't distribute the link for them. So like the researchers will have to sort of like send out the link themselves. I think that's it. Yeah. And thanks for attending.
Any contact details, Dr. Moloi, to those who will be requiring assistance?
Assistant, yeah. So like so like the projects get allocated based on the like as soon as it arrives. So like first come first serve, like sort of like something like that. So the email to contact is Statcon. Statcon. So that will be STATKON at uj.ac.za. The extension is, I forgot the extension. If it's the extension can use they can use my extension 2703. And then or you can email me or mo at uj.ac.za. Yeah. I think like so like if you email me directly, then I'll be working on your project directly, I think. But then if you send your email to statcon at uj.ac.za, your project will be allocated to a different statistician. So like there's 4 of us. And as I said, like the project is allocated for like so first come first serve. So like if I already got 2 projects and then another person will get another 2 projects, something like that. But I'm not sure the mechanism that they use. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So So the contact details are on the chat. Yeah. Sure.
Okay. Thank you, colleagues, for your attendance, and thank you so much to our facilitator, Dr. Moloi. I see a hand up from Dr. Tandiwe. Dr. Tandiwe, you can unmute your mic.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Okay, thank you.
Yes, we can. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Diabuho, for the workshop. I just want to find out, what do you mean by hosting? Do you help with the distribution or what?
No. The distribution is on you, right? So like what we do is we use Question Pro. We don't use So we use Question Pro, and then Question Pro we pay for the license. So we create a link for you. We create everything for you, so that your questionnaire look good and all that, and then we send you the link that you have to distribute to the targeted respondents. And then we also share with you the analytics. So how many participants you have at that moment. So like that will be a different link. And then so you will have to check that link yourself. Keep on checking that link until you reach the desired sample size. And as soon as you get that number that you need, and then you can let us know to close it. And then, so like for hosting, we charge 800 or to 1.2 for hosting your questionnaire. So I think like, yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, cheers.
Well, thank you for that. I don't know if someone else has a question. If you do have any question before I can officially close the session, you can just unmute your mic or type under the chat. In the meantime, I have posted a link to the RCD management system. This is a platform that is available on ULink, so you can just log into your ULink. Either using your staff or student number, and then you go under services. The last option is RCD-MS. That is whereby you will find all our upcoming workshops and be able to access all our previous workshop recording as well as the presentation. You will see all our events, upcoming events. You can book for a writing consultation, book or register for all the workshops that we are providing. And it helps you in terms of generating your own certificate of attendance. So immediately after the workshop, probably in just after 5 minutes of the workshop has ended, you can generate your own certificate of attendance. I see that there is another hand. Let me just check. Yes, I see Dr. Lutui. Sorry for mispronouncing your name. You can just unmute your mic and ask a question.
Okay, thank you very much, and good morning to colleagues. I just wanted to make a follow-up question to the last question, just to ask if this hosting and then the services you offer, that's Dr. Teboho, is only open to UJ staffs and students, or people on the outside can also benefit from it. So as you have shared your email and the contact, if someone outside of University of Johannesburg does contact you, do you also provide such services for them? Thank you.
Okay, yeah. So with the no. So the service is mainly for UJ staff and students. The reason being, so like we use one license. So like there was this law stuff that they were talking about like this past month. So like we only host the questionnaires for UJ researchers and what is this and students. So because like the number of projects that we have, like, so we can't host too many projects at the time. Yeah, and we use one license, and then it's used by like four people, so which is not good. So if you need the hosting privately, one of my colleagues, Jacqueline, she does. Sorry. Oh. So Jacqueline do have
Dr. Interject.
so
Let me just unmute this person. Sorry for that, Doc.
yeah, no problem.
Colleagues, please, if you are not asking a question, make sure that your mic is muted. So sorry for that, Doc. Yeah, you can continue.
Sure. Yeah. So like I'm just gonna drop her email into the chat just now. So like so if you are not a non-UJ staff or non-UJ member, so you can contact this person. So like I'm not sure. So Jacqueline will be the person to to contact if you want to somebody to host your questionnaire. So like the email will be jdeklerk@uj.ac.za. So the person do the private hosting of questionnaires. She uses like SurveyMonkey to host the questionnaires. So like certainly for StatCon, so like we only deal with the UJ members, staff members, or UJ students.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for that.
Well,
Let me just
yeah, thank you very much.
type the email address under the chat.
Jacqueline, yeah.
You say it's JD.
So like, let me check it myself.
EK.
Yeah, I should know this by heart, but certainly not. Yeah. JDKLERK.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Sure.
jdclerk@uj.ac.za.
Yes.
Okay, colleagues, I've shared the contacts of StatCon as well as Miss Jacqueline de Klerk. So should you inquire or have any question or have any query or want to book for a consultation, the email is under the chat, is statcon@uj.ac.za, and the number is 011 559 2703. That is for Dr. Tebahom Loyi. And I've also shared the email for Miss Jacqueline de Klerk under the chat. So if you do inquire more information or assistance, kindly contact them. They will be happy to assist you. Thank you once again, Dr. Moloi. I don't know if I'm closing anyone out again. Let me just check and give a second. Colleagues, if you do have a question, you can just unmute your mic or just type under the chat. Let me just check. Okay, there are no questions at the moment. Thank you once again, colleagues, and thank you to our facilitator for such a very informative presentation. We believe and hope that colleagues have learned something today. We have learned something, and colleagues will share the recording as well as the presentation via model communities as well as the RCD management system. So the recording will be uploaded within the next 3 days. With that being said, thank you once again, colleagues. I am officially closing the session. You can have a great day further, and thank you to our facilitator, Dr. Moloi, for taking your time. We really appreciate and we are honored to have you to facilitate this kind of session. Thank you so much, colleagues. I'm now ending this presentation.
Right, cheers.
Thank you very much.